We're a little bit out of order tonight, but we're going to do the pledge first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here.
John Green.
Here.
Tom Grattan.
Here.
Scott Latham.
Here.
Brian Tobin.
Here.
In the event of an emergency, visitors are advised that they may exit this room from the one side door which leads directly into the parking lot. In the event of an emergency, everyone is asked to move away from the building and do not attempt to leave in your automobiles, since this may cause traffic problems and block incoming emergency vehicles.
Thank you. So we rolled our budget forum into tonight's meeting. So we're going to do that first, then we'll open our regular meeting. So Dr. Morrow and Mr. Scheid, I think it's up to you right now.
So this is an interesting budget forum. Typically, the budget forum is really more for us to hear. But if you've been watching the news or reading the newspaper, you know that the state budget did come out a couple weeks ago and that there is a tremendous amount of conversation around it. The biggest being the removal of the hold harmless portion for the foundation aid. So districts that have been decreasing and their combined wealth ratio is strong or has risen have been cut aid. We fit into that category. The way that the state budget comes out is incredibly convoluted, so you have to pull out all sorts of different aids that really only show up on paper. So a perfect example is a UPK aid. We might be given $200,000 for UPK, and it counts in our aid. But if we only have enough kids to use $100,000, we don't really get the $200,000, even though they count it in our aid number. So, Mr. Scheid is going through and pulling out all the different things. We definitely see a cut, probably in the neighborhood of $300,000 in the first run.
What was that, like 12%? Is that what I read?
13 and change, because again, it's higher than what they usually report because they report aids that they anticipate, predict, or you can use but may not have the kids to use. So they count all of that as your aid, even though it's not. So what we do is we pull out all of those every year so that we can compare apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. Chuck's in the process of doing that, so he won't have an exact number, but if it stays the way it is. Now, it's always important to remember, this is the first run. We typically go through about 3 runs of the budget before we get to that voting process, because you have different bodies that add in. There is a huge legislative push for them to take that hold harmless clause out, make everybody whole for this year. I don't know where it'll end up, so I don't believe it'll end up as high as the $300,000 number, but I believe we will have a cut when it comes to foundation aid this year. As enrollments go down, they're going to have to figure out a way to manage that somehow. So I do think that'll happen. I'm going to pass it off to Chuck now, and he's going to explain some of the tax exemptions that we met with the town about and that are going to be voted on tonight, and then also maybe a little bit more about the budget, and then open it up for anybody on the board or anybody in the audience that wants to share.
Thank you. Good evening. Dr. Morrow and I, we met with the town of Southold probably a couple of months ago now, where they have passed 2 exemptions, and they had recommended to us and some other surrounding school districts that we do the same. So we went into detail what it entails. So basically, the first exemption is for volunteer firefighters and ambulance employees. Basically, this exemption changes to qualify. Instead of having a 5-year to be employed as a volunteer firefighter, now it's 2 years, and they get up to a 10% reduction in their taxes. And there's a separate part where there's an exemption for a volunteer if they have 20 years of service, and if that person is killed in the line of duty, the surviving spouse receives that exemption. So again, that's for the volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers.
The exemption is the same, they just want to lower it from 4 years to 2 years?
It go from 5 to 2. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that's just a change. And the next one is for senior citizens and for a disability exemption. This basically just changes the calculation. Like I said, it's going to change based on what's accepted, say based on, it used to be just interest on IRAs, but bottom line, there's just changing where now it might be, if they pull money out of an IRA, that might count towards the dollar amount on how much they calculate the exemption. And like I said, that's what was suggested by us, that we look into it. And like I said, my understanding is the surrounding districts have, if they haven't already, they're going to adopt the same type of calculation.
Do you think the exemption is going to make a big change?
I don't believe so. I mean, the senior citizen and the disability is a relatively small group. You know, they weren't able to quantify what the numbers are, of course, because you don't know what the income levels are and all that stuff. So it's hard to quantify. But like I said, I know there was just suggestions on what parts of the income on your tax return, what part gets included and what parts don't get included.
And our surrounding school districts adopted these changes, or will, because I think it has to be done by the end of the month, right?
What do you mean?
It has to, action has to be taken soon.
They asked us to do it as soon as
Yeah, that's what I
possible,
thought.
because then they have to go through their entire rolls and calculate everybody's differently. And it doesn't change our tax levy. You know,
Correct, right.
Right.
So
It
we'll
just
collect.
distributes it
It
differently.
just distributes it differently.
Right, we collect the same exact amount. What happens is the pot of money where they pull it from, unfortunately, some
Right.
parcels go up, some go down, and like I said, I don't believe it's a major change at all.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
Okay, so and as Dr. Morrow said, just to kind of go a little bit into the budget, I know there's just been a lot of discussions about state aid. I know today there was a webinar that I listened to. And of course, it's difficult because there's a lot, you know, the numbers that are given are based on something that's not in place. Dr. Morrow mentioned this hold harmless, so that assumes that that goes away, right? Just to repeat, the hold harmless just basically means our foundation aid, state aid, basically wouldn't dip down, that it would stay the same, if not go up. Getting rid of the hold harmless means that now they're going to do it based on strictly, there's several factors, but the main two factors, as mentioned, was the enrollment is one of them. So our enrollment has been going down, so that's a negative. The less students, the less aid that they want to give us. And the second part is the wealth ratio, which, same thing, it's not going in our favor. Our wealth ratio has gone up. I forget how many years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, it was about 2.8, the ratio, which means on the average person in New York. Now we're about 3.6. Again, that's the wealth ratio. So the higher the wealth ratio, the less state aid you're entitled for based on this formula. So districts who have, rising enrollment and lower wealth ratio going down, they're getting more state aid. But again, it's, as Dr. Moore mentioned, there's going to be several changes. It's even in these forms itself, which they list all the different different aid categories. I mean, one I like to bring up is BOCES, which it's a strictly expense-based aid. So they have our BOCES aid going up dramatically, which I do expect it to go up a decent amount because we've been spending more money in BOCES. But a lot of times and even the pre-K that was mentioned, that's not even in our general fund budget. We do look at it and we do receive it. But the big number, that foundation aid, which in the reports actually goes down about $480,000. I anticipate in total we're going to be closer to about $300,000 if this stays the same. Again, which it's not.
That's a lot of money for a district our size.
Yeah. So it's again, it is a little. I expect we have this what's called excess cost aid. I expect that to rise. So again, the whole balancing it out. Again, I do anticipate again if this stays the same, we're looking at probably between $300,000 and $400,000 a drop. And like I said, it's all driven by reduced enrollment and the increase in our wealth ratio. So we're going to keep an eye on it and see, because I'm getting a lot of reports on what our other districts, how their enrollment is, all this other, how these aids fluctuate and stuff like that. So, and I'm still, of course, working on different parts of the revenue budget. I still anticipate to I think it's February 16th, I'm going to have a draft to the board of our, so next week, we're probably going to start meeting with the administrators, and that's what I have. Any questions on the state aid anyway? Okay.
It's not going to be the most pleasant year to do the budget, is it?
Yeah.
It's not going to be the most pleasant of years
It's a
to
little
do the
tighter.
budget.
It's going to be a little tighter. I mean, it's a hit.
It is, yeah,
But
the
you look
first
at
time
districts
it came
that
out.
their anticipated hit right now is 8 million.
Right.
You know, there are districts that have an $8 million shortfall when it comes to what the preliminary, the first set of numbers are. You know, so as much as we will have to, and we talked about this last year, this is not a surprise.
I know.
We had conversations last year with community members that wanted to add different things, and we explained that, you know, it's been nice when we had all this grant money, and it's been nice when people were not eliminating hold harmless, but it's going to come. And now it's coming, and it's going to come more in the next couple of years, because they've been handing out money very readily and very easily, and anybody who's been in this business.
We just were saying that down
Oh,
here, yeah.
yeah.
No free
You know,
lunch.
if you've been in this business for an extended period of time, you know that it is cyclical. They give it away, give it away, give it away, and then they stop and take it back. And you need to prepare for those things. Otherwise, you prepare to fail during those times. You're preparing one way or the other. You're going to prepare to succeed, and our goal, over the last couple of years, have been preparing to make sure we keep all the programs and all these wonderful things we offer our kids. That's what we've been preparing for. Otherwise, we would have been preparing to not do that. That's really what it would have been, and that's what some districts have done. You know, you've seen districts over the last few years, when money was plentiful, adding all these different positions. Well, all those different positions are going to be going away, because we're going to go to the other side of the cycle now, which we always do. You know, you hope that the good side of the cycle lasts for 10, 15 years. It typically doesn't, but, you know, so that's where we're at. So as much as it is a hit, it's one that we've already started to prepare for. It's one that we, we'll sit down and we will put on our thinking caps, and we will try to figure out how to keep everything we have in our budget. You know, are there things that we would like to add every year? At times there are, and we would like to try to add them. We will also try to do that. Whether we'll be able to or not, you know, we shall see.
Can we look a little bit more carefully, perhaps, in light of the declining enrollment and these kind of budget cuts and the increases to health insurance and all of that, at looking at our clubs and maybe not adding, I'm not saying don't add clubs, but if we add a club, what club only has 2 students in it, so that we can maybe prioritize our clubs and our electives, so that we take better advantage of
Yeah.
collapsing some of them together. Certainly, I don't want the students to ever be deprived of it, but maybe we just have to be more creative about numbers, because as Dr. Crean always says, numbers drive change. And I think we've always pointed out to our community that we've never really been, we've never received a great deal of state aid compared to other districts, so we've never relied on it like other districts have. So when the hits come, they're as bad as it is. It's not, like you just pointed out, Dr. Moore, it's not as bad as some districts that
Right, again,
receive
it passes.
such a high percentage.
Fairly level,
Right,
so
right, right,
it's
yeah.
it's manageable, very manageable.
It is. It's just still,
And we'll look at
it's still money that,
we'll look at our offerings and our clubs, and, you know, we've come into a procedure in the last couple of years where, you know, there's certain electives we didn't run last year because the kids chose other ones.
Right.
And we can't run them all. And that has become a more understood, you know, we didn't run some that ran forever, because there were 2 kids that wanted to be in them, and, you know, we eliminated them, we went with other ones, and, you know, so it's also created kind of a nice culture too, because we allow our kids to decide what runs, you know, instead of us as adults deciding what runs.
what they're interested in.
Yeah, creative writing, a perfect example, didn't run, you know, and.
Shocking.
You know, so, so yes, we will absolutely do that with our electives and our clubs, and, you know, we're gonna have to be able to offer everything to our kids that they want, we're gonna have to, you know, watch tightly what we're doing, because money is being tightened up, and it's gonna continue over a few years. It's not just gonna be one. Does any board members have any comments about, any budget items or the community? You guys, this would be your chance if you'd like to say something.
We'll have regular meetings throughout, usually late February, and then through the month of March, where we'll meet regularly. I think it's like almost every week, dare I say. Once we get the budget from the business officials, and they put it together, and then we have further breakdown of where the money's being spent. Thank you, Mr. Scheid.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Doring, for those I haven't met yet. I'm here, I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, and we'll come back to future ones as well, but for the Southold Music Boosters, we've been racking our brains about the best time and way to approach all of you folks about this, but we really wanted to come and let you know that as a group, we absolutely see the need to reinstate an elementary band teacher. For a variety of reasons. I think there've been some meetings going on with the administration and the teachers talking about it. But if you can let us know, we're happy to come with numbers, statistics, what you're looking for to help drive the decision, yes or no, on what you would do with that. But we just wanted to start the process now and let you know that it is something that we're seeing already with elementary students having to schedule lessons. I'm sorry, not the elementary, but the scheduling of lessons for everybody is important. I'm trying to really wasn't prepared to do this tonight. The difference between orchestra and band instruments, to be able to separate each of the instruments into separate small groups, is what the youngest really need to be able to start and to be successful at their instruments. Once you get up to the high school, the junior high, maybe you can put a flute and a trombone in a lesson together if you need to, but at the elementary level, you really can't do that. Orchestra has worked how it has, in my opinion, because there are 4 instruments. A lot of the theory, the technique, those things can be taught where you have most of the kids together and maybe even a larger group. The band is more instrument specific. We're really lucky to be in a district that has a lot of different instruments available to the students. My own kids, I know, have gone through at least 2 or 3 versions of what they've learned from 4th grade up through a recent graduate, and I have a junior now, what they play, because Southold has instruments that are available to them if they want to learn it. The teachers have the skills, they teach it to them, and unfortunately, it does make these smaller groups that you need to do for lessons necessary. And I really think to get the kids started, to get them to enjoy it, to want to carry on with it at the younger levels, they need that more specific, narrow-focused lesson groups. And I think we're missing that. I'm really impressed with what the teachers have done so far with missing an elementary band teacher. They're, I think, filling in absolutely as best as they can, but I wanted to see in this budget that's coming up and all that, if there are any discussions going around with you guys about bringing back a full-time elementary band teacher into the realm of possibility. So.
Can I ask, you said you have numbers and things like
Well, we're working on, we actually met yesterday, and we are putting together, wanted to come to one of the meetings with some stats and some figures to,
Mind reaching out to me and sharing them with me?
I would love to. We just,
They're hard to discuss at a meeting.
Yeah. Right now, it's more, we've got more ballpark things. Like we were looking at the enrollment and realizing that even though enrollment's declining, we still have about a 50% participation rate at the elementary level of the kids in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades who are in the band. So while enrollment is declining, that level is actually pretty impressive, especially for a district of this size. And to be able to foster the lesson time and the interest of the kids to keep them going is, I think, very important. But a concrete number, that's what we haven't. We just literally yesterday started talking about this. And
Started getting some from, well, I didn't just start. I've been out with some
Yes.
stuff going on the last week and a half, 2 weeks. But prior to that, they started giving me numbers, because we look at everything every year.
Right.
You know, so I don't have them either right now.
Right.
You know, I have them in an email and on paper, but I don't have them put together in
We-
an intelligible way.
I guess more, I want to find out, I want to know the right timing for us to bring things to you about this, because I wasn't expecting to see budget on here today, so really, that's why I'm not as prepared as I wanted to be to talk to you all about this.
Just bringing it up generally like you have is good now.
This is the perfect
And
time to
then
bring
as
it
you
up, actually.
as you put numbers together. can
That's
you
what we're
reach out
attempting to
my
do now,
office?
yeah.
Because sitting down and me having numbers and you having numbers, or, whoever you bring with you, it's a much better and easier conversation than when it's in a forum like this, when I don't have things with me or you don't have things with you.
Yeah.
So I would ask that, I don't want to rush you, but I don't,
No.
and you don't have to rush. We have plenty of time. Like,
Okay.
this is the, we want to listen to what people have to say, and we want to tell people what we know.
Okay,
So
so-
that everybody kind of knows where we're going with the budget. That's what this first budget
Good,
form
okay,
is for.
thank you, because we
So
can make sure we don't want to miss the boat on that.
But if
All right.
if I could ask, when you do start getting that stuff together, could you reach out to my office?
Yes, and if you don't mind, could I'll email you, and we can narrow down what kind of things you would in particular like us to try and
Yeah.
present to you? Okay, that would be great. All right, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Does anybody else want to say something about the budget? You'll have another opportunity to speak when we get to the regular meeting, which will be in just a few seconds. Huh? You were plenty prepared, Amy. Nice job. Okay, that brings us, now we're in our regular meeting. That brings us to our first hearing of visitors. At this time, we will listen to questions and comments about any agenda items only, just agenda items at this one. Anybody want to talk this time? No? Oh, okay. That brings us to our consent agenda, which includes the approval of our minutes from our regular board meeting of December 13th. It also includes our financial matters, which are our month of December schedule of bills, our treasurer's report from December, our monthly budget status report of December. It also includes some transfers, the extra classroom activity fund, contracted services, we're surplusing some stuff, and our CSEs, which I believe there were 2. Does anybody, besides myself, have any questions or comments? I have one on the contracted services. This is for the prom, and is it Petrelli, is that go with it? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, I
yes.
couldn't tell the way.
It's two
it's
different contracts, 'cause
Okay.
one is the location.
The venue one's.
It's just two different
one
names
is-
that are,
and
okay.
One is the
The way it was typed up, I wasn't sure about that. And I did have another question about on the, and you can email this in the next couple of days or whatever, on the budget transfers. There was a big budget for busing, I guess, to BOCES in West Hampton. Is this a student that came into the district after the school year began? Is that why there's that we were unaware that was going to happen? Because it's a $45,000 transfer. I can send it to you. I apologize. I usually do this ahead of time. I just didn't get a chance to look at it until today.
If you don't know off the top of your head,
What
you can
page?
send it.
Do
you know.
you have a page for him?
I'll send it to you.
Wait, I mean, we're having BOCES provide that service
Instead of
with
us.
the budget service.
Oh, instead of, okay. So instead of Sunrise doing it, we moved it from, okay. See, that makes, because I was surprised at this time of the year to see that kind
So
of,
it was budgeted for, but it was budgeted for in our transportation line.
got it. So
not in our
they're
BOCES
they're
line.
doing
Yeah.
okay, all right. Thank you. Sorry about that.
And it was a student that we had a hard time.
Now I remember, it makes sense now. I thought that was a large amount in the middle of the year, that those are the things that you can get hit with that you're not ready for. Okay, anybody else have anything? Questions? Alrighty, I should mention in the contracted services, it's for special ed services for a school district and some choreography, pit orchestra personnel for the upcoming performance by the drama department and the junior prom, where the junior prom will be held. Okay, right? I get it all? Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Brian, all in favor? Aye. So now that I messed up my pages. Superintendent's report, I believe, comes next.
New business, old business?
Oh, wait, sorry, old business at the bottom of the page. Old business? No old business. Now superintendent's report, sorry. I'm not as
So,
disorganized as I
As we mentioned before,
pretend.
tomorrow is the elementary concert. I'm very eager to see them because I hear wonderful things. I've been over to see some lessons and to see our teachers working, and they seem to be doing a wonderful job, and I hear great stuff from Mr. Himmelman, who's fantastic in his role. So if you get an opportunity to come out and see, they're on tomorrow night. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out, aside from we have our sports going and there's a lot going on and it's great to see, I wanted to congratulate Paulette because she was selected to receive Scope's School Board Service Award. It only took 20-some-odd years, but we eventually got there. And, she'll be honored. They have a banquet where they honor people from different categories. It's coming up on March 18th. And I'll get you all that information. I'm going to actually give you this now because Jennifer told me I had to.
Well, thank you.
And she also said
I
you
was-
have to fill out the second page and return it to her, but congratulations.
Thank you, I was not aware.
You're
Thank you
very
very
welcome.
much. Thank you. It's totally
well
unnecessary.
deserved.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to serve the community in this district.
Check.
I'm looking. That's probably in the mail.
Now you're asking for a lot.
Well, if it's in excess of like $300,000, I give it to the district for that. Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Moore.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Unnecessary, but thank you. That brings us to our personnel. We have some changes here. Leaving the district full-time permanent, we have a retirement effective July 1, 2024, Judith Dennehy. Some folks entering the district, our new library media specialist, Christine Cassidy, will begin on February 26, 2024. She'll be our new librarian in this building over here. Molly Cavanaugh will be a part-time math AIS teacher effective January 25th, 2024. Alex Seidlowski, full-time bus driver who will replace Mrs. Sheridan, effective January 30th, 2024. And Elizabeth Lynch is a teacher aide who is replacing somebody else's position effective January 29th, 2024. And then we've got some revised and added on people doing clubs and such. The junior senior high school chamber orchestra, Will Fujita, and then our school ambassador, Jess Elwood, Southold Alliance for Equality and Respect, our Safer Club, Christine Imbriano, and our environmental club will be Stephanie Berberidge and Brittany Galano. And we've got substitute bus driver, substitute maintenance mechanic, substitute teacher aide, and some staff members that will be elementary after-school activity advisors. This is just starting, I'm guessing, right? These after-school activities at the elementary.
We've had some, we've done Spanish a couple times this year. We've had some nice attendance. We've done some different ones already, but this is more of them, yeah.
Okay. Any questions on the personnel recommendations? And then I'll do the change of status one. I'll read that one.
Okay.
A motion to accept.
So moved.
Brian, second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And then we have a change of status, Drew Averett Jr., appointment from custodial worker 1 to maintenance mechanic 2, effective February 1, 2024. Is there a motion to accept?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Finance Committee report.
Nothing to report.
Building Committee report.
Nothing to report.
Policy Committee report. Oh, here we go, Mr. Latham. You're up.
Yes, we have a workplace violence prevention policy statement for first read. It just addresses workplace violence. It's not the students, that's a separate policy. This is just for employees and staff.
All righty. So you're making a motion for the first read. Do we have a motion for that, or it's just a first read?
You can do a motion for that.
Scott, you're making that
So moved.
motion?
Second.
Brian, all in favor? Aye. And now I'm going to read the tax exemptions that Mr. Scheid.
Everybody has it?
I think it's important to read it, just so the public is aware of it. I know it's a lot of words, but Tony and I talked about it earlier. We think it's important that the public.
No, it's fine. I
It's-
just didn't want to have to.
Yeah, I read pretty fast. It's just when I get to the big words, I have trouble. Okay, this is the firefighters and voluntary ambulance workers. Whereas the New York Real Property Tax Law, Section 466A, was enacted to provide eligible volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers with a partial real property tax exemption from school taxes on real property owned by the eligible volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker, so long as the school district in which the real property is located, after public hearing, adopts a resolution authorizing the exemption subject to the requirements of New York Real Property Law, Section 46A, and whereas New York Real Property Law, Section 46-A, also allows the school district to provide certain additional benefits applicable to this partial exemption from school taxes, so long as the school district, which has authorized the exemption under Section 466-A, adopts a resolution authorizing such additional benefits. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Southold Union Free School District hereby authorizes the application of the volunteer firefighter and ambulance worker real property tax exemption as contained in New York Real Property Tax Law Section 466-A in the amount of 10% be assessed property value, and be it further resolved that pursuant to New York Real Property Tax Law, Section 466-A2D, the Board of Education establishes a minimum service requirement for each applicant to be 2 years. And be it further resolved that pursuant to New York Real Property Tax Law, Section 466-A6, the Board of Education designates that application for exemption must be made to the local agency responsible for assessment of real property in the school district. And be it further resolved that the Southold Union Free School District does hereby grant an otherwise eligible volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker the exemption provided for in this resolution for the remainder of his or her life if the eligible volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker accrues more than 20 years of active service and is so certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or volunteer ambulance service. And be it further resolved that the Southold Union Free School District does hereby grant an exemption pursuant to New York Real Property Law 466-A to his deceased enrolled member's unremarried spouse if such member is killed in the line of duty, subject to the requirements set forth in New York Real Property Law 466-A4. And be it further resolved that the Southold Union Free School District does hereby grant an exemption claimed pursuant to New York Real Property Tax Law 466-A to a deceased enrolled member's unremarried spouse, subject to the requirements set forth in New York Real Property Tax Law 466-A5. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There was not one period in that whole thing. That was a
Sorry
run,
about that.
that was a run-on sentence. I could think did the English teacher see this? Okay, and the one with regards to senior citizens is much shorter. Whereas the New York State Real Property Tax Law, RPTL 467, provides for a partial exemption from real property taxation for qualifying senior citizens, and whereas the Southold Union Free School District has previously, by resolution, provided for the partial exemption from real property taxation for its senior citizens pursuant to RPTL 467, and whereas the New York State Legislature amended RPTL 467 to provide municipalities with certain options pertaining to the calculation of applicants' adjusted gross income and determining those exemption amounts. And whereas the Southold Union Free School District wishes to consider one of the available options, and whereas the Board of Education has held a public hearing on the proposed amendment to consider an amendment to the calculation of income pursuant to New York State Real Property Tax Law 467, now therefore be it resolved that the Southold Union Free School District hereby elects to include in the definition of income set forth in Real Property Tax Law 467 any distributions received from an individual retirement account or individual retirement annuity that were included in the applicant's federal adjusted gross income. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, then we have an overnight trip that needs approval. Our NJROTC Unit Air Rifle Team has been invited to attend the United States Navy NJROTC Air Rifle Championship in Alliston, Alabama from February 14th to February 18th. Is there a motion to approve the trip?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. That is winter. Oh, that's before winter break, I think, isn't it?
It's
Good.
the week before.
Because they're go to Quantico, I think, over February break. I think we already approved somewhere.
Well, they miss, the 18th is, I think, a Saturday. The 18th is a Sunday.
18th is a Sunday, 17th is a Saturday, yeah. Yeah, usually that is included on here,
It's
the days out of
actually,
school.
there's actually no Southold students on the team. The 5 students that qualified were Greenport and Mattatuck. You know, we have kids on the team that shoot, but for this particular group that you had to qualify, and this qualifying team did not include
Any Southold students?
Southold High School students, but since it is a Southold program, we have to approve
Oh, we
it.
can mess with those kids.
I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my head how they get there.
Good for them.
Yes, yeah. First time that I'm told by Major that it's the first time they've qualified.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
Very, very cool. And then we have our 24-25 school calendar that we're looking to approve this evening. Folks will notice there's some changes on it next year because there's additional state holidays included. It's still the same number of days at the end of the year, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
181 plus 4.
We do 185.
The staff will be in before Labor Day for their conference days, and then the students will start September 3rd. We'll get this up on the website after we approve it, so everybody can plan their vacations for next year accordingly. Is there any questions about the calendar? No? All right, is there a motion to accept the 20, shouldn't this say 20, 24, 20?
Your, that one,
This-
corrected on the.
Oh, I always use the original, okay. So it should say the 24, 20.
24, 20.
I'm sorry, but on mine it says, it's, okay, so I need a motion to accept the 2024-2025 school calendar. All in favor? Anybody have any new business? No? Quiet January. That brings us to our second hearing of visitors. At this time, we will entertain any questions or comments that anybody wants to bring before us. Anybody want to get up and talk?
Come on.
Nothing? You did good the first round, Amy, come on. Okay, well, thank you for coming. That brings us to our commentary. I guess our student is playing some kind of sports or something, probably. Mr. Gren, because we always start down there with the students, so let's start over here.
I have nothing.
All right, Mr. Tobin. Mr. Latham.
Nothing.
And believe it or not, I don't really have anything either, except come to the concert tomorrow night. And, well, in winter, I think there's 54 days until spring. So that's my positive comment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you guys for coming.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.